Assalamu alaikum, peace to the world. I recently had a conversation, just kind of a few back and forth comments on Facebook, and it wasn't that kind of back and forth. I don't do like the Facebook beef type of stuff, you know what I'm saying? It was actually an old friend of mine from high school. We started off at home ec, um, you know, and dude used to listen to so much Screw, like he talked like Screw, you know what I mean? But we all grew up, and he's a person who is very serious about scriptures and being, let's say, well, I mean, just being honest about it. I mean, being pure and actually following what you say you follow instead of just kind of uh, mentioning the book but not actually opening it up. You know what I mean? And I deeply respect that. I deeply respect him. I probably never really expressed that to him. I'm not putting names out there because if I ever become a millionaire off my Facebook page, I don't want to share the money. But you know, what he had posted was uh, a, a meme or a Facebook poster. I don't know exactly what you call it, and it said all of these things are kind of like demonic, or if you're doing this then you're into witchcraft and sorcery. And it was like tarot cards. It was a list of things, two columns: tarot cards, palm reading, um, you know um, Ouija boards, yoga, feng shui, acupuncture, things like that, right? And I just commented that, acupuncture and yoga, like, these are not, um, witchcraft in the sense of they're not spiritual. They're not based on, dealing with other gods. Rather, these are just kind of practices. I kind of feel the same way about feng shui in the sense of it seems to be more about, the psychological effect that color and spacing can have on a room. And I can definitely feel that, like, a simplistic room has a different psychological effect on me than a cluttered room. And a room which is more open and utilizes more light is better than a room which is kind of dark and more claustrophobic. So the general principle of feng shui, even though I haven't really studied it, seems to be something which people have even taken outside of, whichever uh, geographical context it's native to. It may be China, but I'm not sure. And I think it's something we might call ergonomics, where it's just like, how does spacing and things like that, architecture, those principles are there. And he basically said that, yoga involves, invoking other gods. And I thought about it, and I said, I don't really type that much on my phone. So why don't I just kind of, talk about this a little bit in a video? And I'm not really trying to debate because I consider this person a brother, and I actually think that we agree with each other, but we may have different, frames of reference on the things that we're talking about, and we also haven't had a chance to fully express our points of view to realize that we're on the same page. And even if at the end of the day we're not, it doesn't change the brotherhood between us. Going to yoga, I think that when I talk about yoga, I might as well just use a different word. But the word, it would be hard for me to find a word that encompasses what the term yoga means to me. I've never practiced it with someone who uh, considers it to have a spiritual element. For me, my first experience with yoga was when I was an exchange student in Australia, and every Friday there was a gym called HK Ward Gymnasium, and me and this kid named Damien used to play basketball there. And then right after that kind of gym timing would end, there was a yoga session somewhere else on campus in another kind of a gym. It was just like a huge hardwood floor, uh, the top floor of a building. And I was like, this is a great thing to do after basketball, getting your joints and stretching your muscles out and kind of not just, throwing on your sweats and going home and taking a shower and let your muscles kind of wrench up in the wrong way. And, it was just about the strength training and the balance and actually strengthening the core and those, kind of muscles that you don't even know that you have. and that are sound enough when you're young, but that when they atrophy as you get older because you're not using them, you get into your set postures of just sitting around doing your office job thing, you start to have all those problems. So for me, when I say yoga, just to clarify, and I'm not trying to culturally appropriate or deny the spirituality and the spiritual meaning that it has to other practitioners. When I say yoga, I simply mean using, stretching and balancing and posture, and focusing on, circulation, as well as body awareness and breathing awareness, to basically improve your health, improve your core strength, to address the imbalances in your body that we all have. I think if you're right-handed, then you're definitely going to find that you probably your body's off balance, and if you're left-handed, it would be the same thing. And the majority of the yoga that I practice is basically alone, where I don't even really look at poses. I just actually freestyle doing different balance, different things. I mean, I even consider the exercises I do in a pool to be yoga. So I'm using the term by my own definition, and I don't want to disrespect other people's definitions. I just want to say that one last time. And it's really about, just focusing on my health, my own peace of mind, dealing with injuries, coming off surgery, not realizing that the most important part of surgery is actually the recovery, rather than the operation itself. A successful operation doesn't lead to a better outcome, if you don't have the right physio to follow it. So I guess if I had to say, long story short, yoga to me is a type of physiotherapy. And in that sense, I didn't believe that it has anything spiritual about it. I mean, it certainly brings me a peace of mind, but I would definitely not call the Islamic prayer, which I practice, to be yoga. But what I'm saying is the prayer itself, when you do it slowly, when you do it rightly, when you wait until, as it was described by the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may Allah's prayers and peace be upon him, blessings and peace. They said that he would not rise from a position until all of his backbones were set upon each other. And he would sit for a long time between positions. His standing would be a certain way. The breathing would be a certain way. So that it was said about Abu Bakr, the companion, that it didn't seem as though he was breathing, like you didn't see the heaving of the shoulders if you stood behind him, that even if someone breathing slightly, you will notice it, right? You check a sleeping person and you see the slight movement. So there was a sort of breathing technique, so to speak, involved in that. So again, I'm not calling that yoga, but what I'm saying is that even that affects your concentration, and that actually is the main part of the prayer. The physical actions do support something spiritual. So yoga is a way of me addressing my body and my mind in, let's say, in ways other than spiritual. As far as acupuncture, that's based on circulation, nerves, and the energy flows in the body. And all of those things have been verified, excuse me for my nose, they've been verified by, let's say, non-Indian or people outside of the Vedic tradition, and even people outside of the East Asian traditions. It's in fact in East Asia where a lot of acupuncture was developed, even though, according to my understanding, it began in India. So acupuncture and acupressure is something that I've actually had practiced upon me by, believe it or not, a very devout Muslim who actually had his doctorate in acupuncture and acupressure from a university in India. So it was a very regimented practice. It certainly wasn't anything where there's a lot of, hocus pocus spirituality surrounding it. It was like, let's measure these outcomes, let's look at the goals. let's look at the body in a different way and address the needs of the body in a different way by basically finding where there are places that you can connect to different parts of the body and even affect or manipulate those parts through, you can do that with internal organs and even processes through external places that you can actually reach, and stopping an energy flow or opening an energy flow, in improving circulation and things like that. And along with that, he used some things like magnets, and other more, I guess, things that are more familiar to industrial Western medicine. So the acupuncture and acupressure were certainly not things where there was an invocation of deities, gods, spirits, jinn. There was no thinking that, alongside this practice, some spiritual benefactor will be part of what accomplishes the effect on your body. So for me, it could very well be that you read of a technology or you become aware of a technology that to its originators or to its bearers has a spiritual element. But if you can see that there is something which is tangible and measurable about it and it's beneficial, then I think that it's safe to, giving all due respect to the people from which you are borrowing, to say that, I'm kind of using this aspect and I'm not using another. For example, there are some foods that, I might find from another culture that do have, a good health effect on the body, a medicinal effect on the body. All food does. All food is medicine. That's one thing people should know. And it's either good for you or it's not. It's low grade or high grade, but that's another topic. And I might say, well, I'm not going to eat that. This level of that doesn't work for me, but this part I will. If there's a certain, mathematics, obviously a lot of it comes from India. I would say almost all the mathematics that most of us are familiar with comes from that. Even if it was transmitted through other peoples, like the so-called Arabic numerals are actually Indic. It's just that Westerners learned of them from the Arabs and then called them that. Then there may have been a broader context, a larger interpretation of those numbers and the numbering system. And it could be that these to us symbolize, certain spiritual principles, whereas the people otherwise say, well, we don't understand that, or we don't believe in that, or we don't accept that. However, there is a part of it which we do understand and accept and which we can also use. I think that that's validly, I think that a person can validly say that they are practicing or using these technologies or knowledge bases, and without there being anything spiritual there. I mean, if you're talking about incantations and mentioning names and all that, you can't rightfully say, oh, no, there's nothing spiritual there. I'm like, well, whether or not these spirits or deities, etc., exist or not, you certainly are invoking them in the same way that people who do believe them invoke them. Since it's nearing what a lot of people call Halloween, I guess I should mention that. I probably stopped trick-or-treating when I was like 9 on my own. I think one Halloween, the rest of my family went out and I was like, I think I'm just going to play Nintendo. So I'm exposing my age, but that is clearly something where every practice of Halloween is part and parcel, even if it has been altered, of something which is very spiritual. The costume wearing is to scare off spirits. That's why it originated as scary costumes. Now people just do cute or funny, or even offensive, racist, right? But the wearing of a costume on that night was to ward off the spirits of the dead who were to rise the next day. Halloween is All Hallows Eve. The name is shortened. And the idea was that that is a night when the spirits of the dead are out and about, and for them to stay away from you, that you should scare them away. And then likewise, the sharing of food, treats, is basically if you don't appease these spirits when they are out in the night and they go by your home, then they will exercise, they will do exercise whatever powers they have to damage your home or your person. So the trick or treat is literally the spirits are saying to you, trick, we'll play a trick on you or give us a treat. And the wearing of costumes is actually the people trying to scare the spirits off. Well, now what they do is wear costumes and go to people's houses, but it's clearly all the same thing. So I can't say that if, someone might say, oh, well, this is the same thing, Daniel. We're not doing it for health. We're just doing it for fun. I'm like, well, you're actually exercising the ritual. You're performing the ritual. Every single part of the ritual is there. I've been to Thailand. They do the exact same thing. Every time they eat, there's a little miniature house like the size of a birdhouse with little miniature figures in it. And they say, these are the spirits of this area. Every square of land, every house, every plot of land has a little house. And they leave their bread or a little bit of whatever they eat to appease those spirits of the area. So it's kind of like, if you're performing a ritual, it's different than doing something which is clearly technological and which, science can establish has a use and a benefit. Those are my thoughts. Video's a little long, but I just wanted to really expound upon the point that I had, first and foremost, for my friend and brother, to basically, just make it clear what I was saying, and that I hope we can find that, we agree on this as we do many other things. So peace, salam, shalom, however you say it, peace to the world.